Pick up any speaker in a showroom and look at the badge. 5 brands on this list built their reputation on products that are not those speakers. 3 built theirs on exactly what they sell. Today, the technicians tell you which is which. No sponsored gear, no manufacturer relationships, just what the technicians know. Klipsch. Paul Klipsch founded Klipsch and Associates in Hope, Arkansas in 1946, in a tin shed with one conviction. Horn-loaded speakers were more efficient than anything else available, and efficiency meant that less amplifier power could produce more sound without distortion. The Klipschhorn, the Heresy, the La Scala, these were engineering products. They measured well. They lasted. Technicians who opened them found components specified to perform, not to hit a margin target. Klipsch was acquired by Vox International in 2011. Vox International is a consumer electronics conglomerate whose portfolio includes headphone brands, remote controls, and automotive accessories. In 2021, Vox sold the Klipsch Group to Massimo Corporation, a medical technology company that also acquired Bowers and Wilkins. A medical technology company now owns 2 of the most respected names in hi-fi speaker engineering. What technicians find inside current Klipsch reference series speakers is consistent with what that ownership history predicts. The crossover components in the reference R series use electrolytic capacitors in signal-critical positions. The cabinet construction uses thinner MDF panels than the Heritage series that built the brand's reputation. The drivers are sourced from the same contract manufacturing pool available to brands at half the price. The Heritage series, the Klipschhorn, the Cornwall, the Forte, is a different proposition. That line carries genuine engineering continuity with what Paul Klipsch built in that tin shed. The reference series does not. Prices mentioned are US-based estimates. Check your local market. Verdict: the Heritage line earns the Klipsch name. The reference line borrows it. Buy this if your budget reaches the Heritage series. That engineering is the real thing, and it still earns every dollar it charges. Avoid it if you are buying the reference series assuming the horn-loaded Heritage carries over. Open the crossover, and it will tell you immediately which engineering culture made these decisions. That is the first brand, a genuine engineering legacy attached to a consumer line that does not carry it. The next one has the same problem, but the ownership chain that produced it is even more familiar. JBL. JBL was founded in Los Angeles in 1946 by James B. Lansing, the same engineer whose earlier work produced the cinema speaker systems used in Hollywood from the 1940s onwards. The professional JBL line, the 4XXX Studio Monitor series, the M2 Master Reference Monitor, and the equipment trusted by recording engineers who cannot afford to get it wrong, carries genuine engineering continuity with that heritage. The professional line earns everything it charges. JBL consumer speakers are now part of Samsung's Harman division, the same portfolio that includes AKG, Crown, Harman Kardon, and dozens of other brands managed for margin rather than engineering culture. The JBL Stage and Studio series use drivers sourced from contract manufacturers and crossover components that reflect the price point rather than the professional heritage. Open the cabinet and look at the crossover. What you find in a professional JBL Studio monitor and what you find in a JBL Stage A130 are not the same engineering decision. The badge is identical. The components inside are not. Verdict: the professional line earns the JBL name. The consumer line lives off it. Buy this if your budget reaches the professional 4XXX series. That is where JBL's engineering actually shows up. Avoid it if you are buying the consumer Stage or Studio series expecting the professional heritage to carry over. The crossover inside will confirm immediately that it does not. 2 brands, 2 professional heritages borrowed by consumer lines that did not earn them. The third has a subtler problem, a flagship product that genuinely deserves its reputation, and an entry line that borrows it without the engineering that built it. KEF. KEF was founded in Maidstone, England in 1961 by Raymond Cook, an engineer who had worked at the BBC Research Department and believed that speaker measurement rather than subjective listening should drive acoustic design. The Uni-Q driver, placing the tweeter at the exact acoustic center of the mid-bass cone, is a genuine engineering innovation that KEF developed and patented. The LS50 Meta is one of the most rigorously measured speakers available at any price. Technicians who open it find components that match the specification. The KEF Q series, the entry line that most buyers actually purchase, uses a version of the Uni-Q driver, but with crossover components that reflect the entry price point rather than the engineering culture that built the LS50. The Q150 and Q350 use electrolytic capacitors in the crossover. The cabinet construction uses thinner panels than the R series. The binding posts are the minimum viable specification for a product that functions rather than performs. KEF is now part of Gold Peak Group, a Hong Kong-based electronics conglomerate. The engineering culture at KEF has maintained more continuity than most acquisitions in this space, but the Q series reflects cost decisions that the LS50 Meta does not. Verdict: the LS50 Meta earns the KEF reputation. The Q series borrows it. Buy this if your budget reaches the LS50 Meta or the R series. That is where KEF's genuine engineering shows up. Avoid it if you are buying the Q series assuming the Uni-Q heritage carries fully into the entry line. The crossover components inside tell a different story. 3 brands, 3 entry lines that borrow reputations their flagships earned. Before the final 2, if this is the kind of content you want more of, subscribe now. Quick question: have you ever opened a speaker cabinet you paid serious money for? Because what technicians find inside the next 2 has been making people return speakers for 30 years. The 4th is one of the most respected names in consumer hi-fi. What happened to the engineering culture inside is the part nobody in the showroom explains. Denon. Denon has manufactured audio equipment since 1910. The professional heritage is real, including broadcast turntables, studio amplifiers, and equipment specified by Japanese public broadcasting for decades. That reputation was built on specific engineering decisions that technicians could verify by opening the chassis. Denon speakers are a completely different proposition. Denon has never been a speaker engineering company. The speaker line is manufactured under license by third-party contractors using components that share no development lineage with the amplifier and receiver engineering that built the brand's credibility. The crossover networks in current Denon speaker production use electrolytic capacitors. The cabinet construction reflects a retail price point. The ownership history compounds the problem. Denon has passed through Sound United, Massimo, and Samsung's Harman division, the same ownership chain that affected Marantz, Polk, and Bowers & Wilkins. Each transition introduced a new cost structure. The speaker line, never the brand's engineering priority, absorbed those cost structures without resistance. Verdict: a brand that built its credibility in electronics, now lending that credibility to a speaker line that never earned it and never will. Buy this if you want a Denon amplifier or receiver. The electronics line still carries meaningful engineering continuity at the mid and upper tiers. Avoid it if you are buying Denon speakers assuming the electronics reputation applies. It does not. And the crossover components inside will confirm it the moment you open the cabinet. Walk away. 4 brands. 4 different ways to attach a respected name to speakers that did not earn it. The 5th built its entire consumer speaker business on a name that means something entirely different in the markets where serious engineering happens. Canton. Canton Electronic was founded in Niedernhausen, Germany in 1972. For decades, the brand carried genuine credibility in the German hi-fi market, a reputation built on cabinet construction quality and crossover component choices that reflected engineering priorities rather than margin targets. Canton was acquired by a private equity group and subsequently restructured multiple times. The current GLE and Chrono series use crossover components that technicians describe as the minimum viable specification for a product that functions rather than performs. The cabinet construction in the entry GLE series uses MDF panels without the internal bracing that characterized the brand's original engineering culture. Verdict, an engineering culture that did not survive the transition from founder-led company to private equity portfolio brand. Buy this if you find original Canton speakers from before 2000 in the used market. Those reflect the engineering culture the brand was built on. Avoid it if you are buying current GLE or Chrono production. The crossover components inside will confirm immediately that the original culture is gone. 5 brands, 5 different ways to charge for a name that the engineering no longer justifies. The technicians already know what they buy instead, and none of it needs a conglomerate behind it to justify what is inside the cabinet. Wharfedale. Wharfedale has built speakers in Yorkshire since 1932 without a single ownership change that introduced non-audio management into the engineering decision process. The Diamond series costs between $300 and $500 a pair. The crossover components are film capacitors. The cabinet bracing is not simplified to hit a quarterly margin target. The audio press stopped covering them because they do not pay for advertising. The people who actually listen to music never stopped buying them. Verdict: 90 years of honest engineering sold for less because nobody is paying to market it. Buy this if you want correctly specified components at an honest price without paying for a name. Avoid it if you need a speaker that fills a room over 400 square feet without a subwoofer. The Diamond series wants a modestly sized listening space to sound its best. 90 years without a cost-cutting acquisition. The second recommendation has been building speakers in France since 1980, and the question people in your comments have already been asking about them is exactly the right one. Triangle. Triangle Electroacoustique was founded in Soissons, France in 1980 and has remained under consistent ownership, focused on acoustic engineering rather than portfolio management. The Borea series uses paper cone drivers developed and manufactured by Triangle themselves. The crossover components are film capacitors. The cabinet construction is a 25mm MDF panel with internal bracing that technicians describe as more substantial than speakers at twice the price. What makes Triangle unusual in the current market is vertical integration. Most speaker manufacturers at this price point source drivers from the same pool of Asian OEM suppliers. Triangle manufactures their own drivers in France. That decision costs more. It also means that the driver specification reflects acoustic targets rather than whatever the OEM catalog offers at the relevant price point. Prices mentioned are US-based estimates. Check your local market. Verdict: a French manufacturer that chose to keep driver production in-house when every financial incentive pointed toward outsourcing, and the crossover components inside confirm that the same discipline applies throughout. Buy this if you want imaging and mid-range clarity at an honest price from a company that builds what it sells. Avoid it if you need deep bass extension without a subwoofer. The Borea BR03 rewards the right room more than it compensates for the wrong one. 2 brands with no acquisition history and no borrowed reputations. The third earns the highest price on this list, and every penny of it. Harbeth. Dudley Harwood founded Harbeth Acoustics in 1977 after leaving the BBC Research Department, where he had spent his career developing the synthetic polymer cone materials that would eventually define BBC monitoring. The Monitor 40 uses Harbeth's proprietary radial cone material, manufactured by Harbeth themselves. No other manufacturer uses radial. It does not exist outside Harbeth's facility in Horsham, West Sussex. The Super HL5 Plus, Harbeth's most accessible model at approximately $3,500 per pair, uses the same radial driver technology as the Monitor 40. The crossover components are film capacitors and air core inductors specified to the same standard as the professional reference. The cabinet is a thin-walled design that Harbeth has refined over 40 years to eliminate the resonance that thick-walled cabinets introduce. Harbeth has never been acquired. The engineering culture that Dudley Harwood established when he left the BBC is the same engineering culture that Alan Shaw, his successor, applies today. That continuity is visible the moment you open the cabinet. Verdict: the engineering culture the BBC built, sold by the people the BBC trained, at a price that reflects what that engineering actually costs. Buy this if your budget reaches the Super HL5 Plus and you are building a system you intend to own for 20 years. The engineering inside justifies the price, and the longevity justifies the investment. Avoid it if the Harbeth price point is out of reach. Both Wharfedale and Triangle above deliver honest engineering at a fraction of the cost. Here is the principle I want you to take away from this video. One sentence: a premium finish is the easiest thing to fake. The crossover components inside are not. 3 words: passive, independent, serviceable. Every brand on the avoid list fails at least 2 of those 3. Every brand on the trust list passes all 3, and none of them needed a conglomerate acquisition to justify what is inside the cabinet. Which brand surprised you most, the one to avoid or the one you had never considered? Drop it below. See you next time.